Hey everybody, I'm Paul. I'm a coach and author of the #1 best-selling book, Full. And today I want to talk to you about a concept that I call emotional doom scrolling. Now, this pattern has shown up time and time again over the last 10 years with my clients who struggle with overeating and restriction. But this also extends to life. And when you see it, it becomes so much more simple to deal with. So the idea is we create the outcomes that we are afraid of through the very means that we use to try and avoid them in the first place. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples both with food and with life, and you can see if it shows up in your own life. So the first one is when people are ashamed of their body, they might go on a strict diet, which forbids overeating, and then they overeat, and then it increases more shame. The strict diet created more of the shame they were trying to avoid. Or people who should work out, whenever there's should, there's usually shame involved. They feel guilty about missing a workout. And instead of benefiting from the rest, they begin to torture themselves about the household tasks, the unfinished projects, everything they need to do, which just exacerbates more and more of the inner guilt and torment. In trying to avoid the feeling of guilt, they've created it. In life, this can show up when you are angry at somebody and you opt not to tell them. And instead, it comes out in a series of passive-aggressive jibes, which makes the person defensive or just washes over them completely, which makes you angrier. This is, in my opinion, at the heart of every recurring problem in our life. It's like a perfect formula. I call it emotional doom scrolling because you know the feeling when you're bored and you cannot stop scrolling your feed, and you're creating more boredom for yourself. You can feel yourself getting more and more depleted. And once you see this, it is so much easier to deal with it, because so many of the ways that we deal with our challenges are counterintuitively incorrect. If you overeat, it seems logical to the mind to compensate, to restrict, to eat less, to undo the damage. But that just makes overeating worse because you're now adding hunger and depletion to a sense of food anxiety and deprivation in the mind. So here's my two-part formula to begin to deal with this issue. The first one is to sit down for 5 or 10 minutes, pen and paper if you need to, and be very honest about one specific recurring problem in your life. The one that I've traditionally dealt with all my career is people who struggle with overeating every time they try and lose body weight. For instance, I have clients who have a holiday or a wedding or something meaningful coming up and they plan to eat perfectly, and then they end up overeating instead. And of course, the mind creates this idea that it's a lack of willpower or a lack of discipline or it's laziness. And none of those things are true. What it is usually shame. And shame keeps people repeating the behavior that they're ashamed of. So when you're trying to diet yourself out of shame, you're in essence trying to diet yourself out of overeating. You're ashamed of overeating. But shame stagnates and it keeps us repeating the thing we're ashamed of. And then you go online and you hear about willpower and discipline, and then that matches the self-criticism in your brain. So then you think, well, I just need a bit more willpower. I'll just try harder, and trying is effortful. So then it increases the emotional value of the food you're trying so desperately not to want. And of course, then that leads to this catastrophic feeling. So in your initial attempt to avoid the shame, you created more of it down the road. And when you see this, you can do the counterintuitive thing, which is to realize maybe now's the time to not diet, or at least not pursue a deficit. Or in a more local circumstance, if you overeat, maybe the thing you need to do is get back to normal instead of the pull to restriction. It's counterintuitive. And that brings me to the second point, which is do the counterintuitive thing. If it feels uncomfortable and you need to do it, that's a good sign that you probably should do it. I have worked with people who struggle with people pleasing, and it is so uncomfortable for them to state their needs to somebody else. It almost feels threatening because they've lived their lives with a very familiar feeling of, my needs don't really matter, I'll just do what the other person wants. But they silently go through life hoping for their needs to be met. And it doesn't work that way until they develop the ability to say it. And to somebody else, stating what they want can be so easy. So this can be a skill that you can build, like eating. It's the whole premise of my book is soft skills that we need to develop if our patterns are standing in the way between us and what we want. So that's the two-part formula. Sit down and be honest about the recurring problem in your life. And I say recurring because if it's a once-off thing, this is probably not at the heart of it. But if it is recurring, this most likely is. And the second thing is, think about the more than likely counterintuitive way you need to deal with this that can interrupt this cycle and allow you to build a life for yourself that feels nourishing in every sense of the word. So that's it for this video, my first YouTube video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next one.